Claire stood beneath the flickering lights of the airport terminal, her eyes darting across the glowing flight board, barely able to read through her tears. The pre-dawn bustle swirled around her, families chatting, businesspeople typing, children laughing, but all she could hear was the sound of her own racing heartbeat. She clutched a worn leather bag, the only thing she had time to grab before slipping out the door of the house she'd felt trapped in for 10 long years. The echo of her husband's cruel words still clung to her skin like smoke. She didn't look back. She didn't leave a note. Fear gripped her chest, but so did something else, an unfamiliar sensation, freedom. Raw and terrifying. She kept telling herself she just needed to get on a plane. Any plane. Go anywhere. Far from the lies, the manipulation, the cold silences and shouted accusations that had become her daily life. Her trembling hand fumbled with the ticket kiosk, her eyes cloudy, mind spinning. Gate 27. Flight 1823. That's what she thought she'd seen. She rushed past the line, through security, barely hearing the boarding call. By the time she collapsed into her seat, heart still pounding, her limbs were heavy with adrenaline and fatigue. Claire didn't know it yet, but she'd boarded the wrong flight. Not to San Diego like she planned, but somewhere else entirely. And sitting next to her, silent, calm, almost glowing with an unshakable presence, was a stranger. A man whose quiet eyes would soon see her pain without her needing to explain it. But for now, she curled into her seat, staring out the window, unaware that the flight she accidentally chose would become the beginning of everything she never knew she needed. Claire stared blankly at the clouds outside her window, tears slipping down her cheeks in silence. She thought she could hold it together, but the altitude, the exhaustion, the weight of what she'd left behind, it cracked her open mid-flight. She wiped her face quickly, ashamed, whispering, "I'm sorry," to the man seated beside her. He looked up from his book, The Alchemist, its spine bent with love, and offered her a clean tissue from his coat pocket. "No need to apologize," he said gently. "Sometimes wrong turns take us to the right places." His voice was warm, smooth like honey over gravel. She glanced at him properly for the first time, dark eyes, salt and pepper beard, a quiet strength wrapped in a charcoal coat and kindness. Something about him stilled the storm inside her, if only for a moment. They sat in silence for a while, then began to talk, not about the weather, but about the ache of starting over. Claire spoke hesitantly at first, testing the safety of his listening. He didn't ask invasive questions. He didn't interrupt. He nodded, occasionally offering a word or two that felt more like gentle nudges than advice. "You left something heavy," he said once, not as a question but as an understanding. "I did," she replied. "But I don't even know who I am without it." He closed his book and smiled softly. "That's the best part about rock bottom, it's a solid place to build from." Claire found herself breathing easier. She hadn't been truly seen in years. And this stranger, this mysterious man in seat 14B, somehow felt like the first person who didn't see her as broken, but becoming. The plane hummed steadily around them, but Claire barely noticed. She sat with her legs curled slightly toward the aisle, angled just enough to face Malcolm. Her voice was quieter now, steadier. The tears had stopped, but a storm still flickered behind her eyes. "I left this morning," she admitted, her gaze fixed on the seatback tray. He was still asleep. "I packed a bag and walked out the door like a ghost. I didn't even take my wedding ring, I just couldn't touch it anymore." Malcolm didn't flinch. He nodded slowly, absorbing her words the way a tree absorbs wind. Solid, present, unmoved but not unaffected. "You were brave," he said. "People think staying is strength. Sometimes, it's walking away that takes everything you've got." Claire blinked, a wave of emotion tightening her chest. "I don't feel brave. I feel like I'm falling apart." Malcolm looked out the window for a moment, as if pulling strength from the endless sky. Then he spoke. 3 years ago, I lost my wife to cancer. She was the best part of me. For a long time, I was just existing. I didn't talk much. I didn't eat right. I couldn't listen to music without falling apart. Claire's breath caught. She hadn't expected his pain to echo hers in a completely different way. I eventually found my way into grief counseling, he continued. Helping others he'll help me remember who I am. That I still have something to give. He paused, then turned to her fully. You are not broken, Claire. You're just beginning. There's so much life left in you, more than he ever let you believe. For the first time in a long while, Claire believed it might be true. As the plane descended through thick clouds, Claire noticed something strange: snow. Heavy, drifting snow blanketed the runways and rooftops below. Her brow furrowed. That couldn't be right. San Diego didn't get snow. When the pilot announced, "Welcome to Minneapolis," Claire's heart dropped. Panic surged through her. "Minneapolis," she whispered, fumbling for her boarding pass. Her hands trembled as she stared at the paper in disbelief. In her rush, in her panic that morning, she must have grabbed the wrong ticket. She was over 1,000 miles from where she thought she'd be. I messed up," she said, voice cracking. "This isn't where I was supposed to go. I don't even know anyone here. What am I going to do?" Malcolm remained calm, his presence as steady as ever. He gently touched her shoulder. "Take a breath," he said. "You may have boarded the wrong flight, but that doesn't mean you're lost." She looked at him, overwhelmed and close to tears again. "My sister runs a guest house here," Malcolm offered. "She always keeps a room open for someone who needs it. You're welcome to stay for a while. No pressure." Claire stared at him, stunned by the offer, by his effortless kindness. "There's also a women's center nearby," he continued. "I volunteer there. They help people starting over. You're not the first to land here with nothing but a suitcase and a story." Her breathing slowed, the panic slowly fading into something softer. "Hope, maybe." "Why are you doing this for me?" she asked. He smiled gently. "Because someone once did it for me." Claire didn't know what would come next. But for the first time in years, she didn't feel alone. The wind was crisp, but the sunlight danced across the snow, painting everything in quiet gold. Claire walked slowly down the sidewalk outside the women's center, a to-go coffee warming her gloved hands. Her breath fogged in the winter air, but her heart felt light, steady, something she hadn't known in years. Just weeks ago, she was running. Now, she was arriving. The center behind her hummed with gentle energy, women laughing, kids playing, stories being rewritten in real time. Claire had started volunteering last week, helping organize donated clothes, teaching basic budgeting, and, mostly, just listening. She was good at that now. And with every story she heard, she understood her own better. She stopped at a bench, sat for a moment, and pulled out a small envelope. Inside was a handwritten note, words carefully chosen, heavy with emotion she could finally express. "Dear Malcolm. You'll never fully know what you gave me that day on the plane. I thought I was lost, but maybe I was just waiting to be found. You were my wrong seat, right person. Thank you for seeing me when I couldn't see myself. Thank you for helping me believe that healing is possible. With all my heart, Claire." She tucked the letter into the mailbox down the street, smiling as it clinked into the slot. Claire didn't know where life would take her next, but for the first time in years, she wasn't afraid. She had found kindness in the most unexpected place, a stranger on a plane. And now, she was building something new, something stronger. Sometimes, the wrong flight takes you exactly where you're meant to be. Conclusion. Claire's journey began in desperation, fueled by fear and the quiet ache of years spent unseen. In a moment of chaos, she boarded the wrong plane, but that mistake became her turning point. Seated beside a stranger with a gentle soul and a history of his own, she found more than a listening ear, she found hope. Malcolm didn't rescue her, he reminded her of the strength she already carried. Through his kindness, she discovered that healing isn't about erasing the past but embracing the chance to begin again. What started as a panicked escape transformed into a new life filled with purpose, community, and self-worth. Claire didn't just survive her past, she rewrote her future. This is more than a story about a wrong flight. It's a reminder that even in our most broken moments, we may be closer to healing than we think. That sometimes, the strangers we meet by accident become the ones who help us find ourselves. And that the most beautiful beginnings often start